Recently, the Supreme Court heard arguments regarding the 2018 Mississippi state law that bans abortion after 15 weeks. At first blush, it seems to be about Roe versus Wade, which was a Supreme Court ruling in 1973, which allowed abortion on demand throughout the country, with very few restrictions at the time. Now, during the hearing, one of the associate justices, Justice Sotomayor, fearing that Roe versus Wade may be overturned by the present conservative 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court, she was afraid it might be overturned, and she said the following. She asked the following, quote, "Will this institution survive the stench that this creates in the public perception that the Constitution and its readings are just political acts? I don't see how it is possible," she continues. "If people actually believe that it's all political," referring to the court, "how will we survive? How will the court survive?" End quote. Justice Sotomayor appears to be concerned about the appearance of the court if it overturns Roe versus Wade. She makes it sound as though the court has never made any bad decisions in the past, which I believe Roe versus Wade is one of them. She would have one believe that overturning Roe versus Wade would somehow negatively impact the public perception and cause, quote unquote, a stench among Americans. History proves her wrong on both counts. First, the court has made several egregious rulings in the past in its history. Perhaps the most notable one is the Dred Scott case, Scott versus Sanford. Dred Scott was a slave who was living, I believe, in Illinois at the time, and that was a free state, and I think he also lived in Wisconsin, which was also a free state. He sought his freedom for he and his wife. But the Supreme Court found, though he was a citizen of the state, that he was not a citizen of the nation or national citizenship. It was a 7-2 ruling in favor, or against Scott, I should say. And because he wasn't a national citizen, he had no standing in the federal court system, if you can believe that. The ruling, in effect, made all slaves in America at that time personal property of the slave owners. Imagine a human being being the personal property of some other human being. But that's, in effect, what happened because of the Dred Scott ruling. But that wasn't the only egregious case. There were others. The Supreme Court never overturned the Dred Scott case, the Scott versus Sanford, never. Congress, by enacting the 13th and the 14th Amendments to our Constitution, in fact, did that. The 13th Amendment, proposed in 1864 and ratified in 1865, abolished slavery and involuntary servitude. The only exception was a prisoner, somebody who had been convicted of a crime. The 14th Amendment, which proposed in 1866 and ratified in 1868, read all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So you see here the court, the Supreme Court, the so-called pristine arbiter of all that's important to our national life, didn't weigh in. In fact, they made a wrong decision. I think Roe versus Wade is among those wrong decisions. Now, one would think that after Congress passed the 13th and 14th Amendment and ratified them, that the matter would be over. Well, one would be wrong. The matter was not over. The Supreme Court, ever the bastion of politics and untold personal bias, would once again deny Black Americans their true, full freedom and equality before the Lord. Here's the rest of the story. Following the 1864 Dred Scott decision and the subsequent amendments passed by Congress in 1865 and 1868, the Supreme Court weighed in again, this time in 1896. And again, they got it terribly wrong. The case became known as Plessy versus Ferguson. It was a landmark case in 1896. In it, the United States Supreme Court decision upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation under the separate, but equal, quote-unquote, doctrine. The case stemmed from an 1892 incident in which a black man Plessy, boarded a train, and he was told he had to sit in the car that had black people. He refused because he felt he was a citizen and therefore he was entitled to freedom and certainly equality before the law. The Supreme Court didn't see it that way. They rejected Plessy's argument that his constitutional rights were violated and ruled that a law, quote, implies merely a legal distinction, talking about segregation laws, between white people and black people and was not unconstitutional. As a result, restrictive Jim Crow legislation and separate public accommodations based on race became legal, and many states embraced them. Think about it. Children had to go to black schools. They couldn't go to a white school, black children. Black people couldn't drink from a fountain, a water fountain that white people used. They couldn't sit in the same place in a restaurant where white people sat, and on and on and on it goes. We're talking about human beings. The only difference between us is the color of our skin. We're citizens of America. We are supposed to be treated equally under the law. They weren't. And this after the 13th and 14th Amendment were passed. And now I want to talk about the true reason for the law being challenged before the court now. The Mississippi 2018 Mississippi ban on abortion after 15 weeks. It has nothing to do with precedent. It has nothing to do with overturning Roe versus Wade directly. It has to do with saving the lives of children. We need to get away from the news media and away from the so-called political spin on what's taking place. Everybody's worried about the court overturning something. I'm worried about the killing of our children, black and white, red and brown, all the children. I'm going to share some numbers with you. They're sobering numbers. Since 1973, there have been more than 62 million abortions in the United States as of 2019. Approximately 2,400 children die each day to the American genocide. Of this number, 19.4 million were black children. 1 out of 3 black children, babies, 800 every day, are aborted. 34% of black babies were aborted in 2017. 37.1% of all abortions were performed on black women, who make up only 14% of the total population of the United States, women of childbearing age. Every 36 seconds, a baby is killed by abortion in the United States. By the way, abortion kills more black children each day than it does white children. And by some estimates, abortion claims virtually the same number of black lives each year in the United States than all other causes combined. Now, here's something to think about. The genocide in America is big business. Big business. Planned Parenthood is a business. They talk about protecting women's rights to medical care and so forth. It's about abortion. And many sites that I visited came up with this statistic. It's staggering, frightening. 78% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in black or other minority communities. Why is that? Because many of the poor, the minorities, are not really have access to good medical care. Or, well, there may be other reasons, of course, but that may be one. And they turn to these places that talk about women's reproductive rights and medical care. It's an abortion clinic. Now, let me conclude. I believe evangelicals should be politically aware, not naive, aware and active. I believe evangelicals should vote their conscience. They should get off their butts and go out there and vote. No, I don't believe that our political activity or civic activity involvement will bring about the kingdom of God on earth. I don't believe that for a moment. In fact, one man put it rather eloquently. His name is Jacques Ellul, and he understood this conundrum, if you will, about us Christians. He wrote the following: "Thus he," referring to Christians, "must plunge into social and political problems in order to have an influence on the world, not in the hope of making it a paradise, but simply in order to make it tolerable," end quote. He's right. We're not going to be politically active because we believe that we're going to create a paradise. No. But we might be able to stem the tide on the American genocide as one thing that we could do by being politically aware and active, involved. It's my hope that the court will overturn Roe versus Wade because it may save some of these children's lives, and it may end the American genocide of unborn children. I submit to you that we can do better. We must do better.